It begins with something simple, almost forgettable. A doorbell camera. One device. One timestamp. One moment captured in the middle of the night. A masked figure stands outside the home of a 78-year-old woman, alone in a quiet neighborhood in Tucson. No clear interaction. No visible struggle. Just a presence at the door, and then silence. After that, the trail disappears. Nancy Guthrie was gone. You already know the name Savannah Guthrie. The face, the voice, the calm authority behind a news desk. But this story isn't about her career. It's about her mother. Nancy was 78. Her life was structured around necessity. A pacemaker kept her heart steady. Medication she couldn't afford to miss. Physical limitations that made even short walks difficult without help. This isn't someone who just vanishes without a trace. This is someone whose daily routine was defined by survival, by careful management of a fragile body, by dependence on the people around her. On January 31st, 2025, at exactly 5:32 in the evening, Nancy left her home. She was headed somewhere familiar, her daughter Annie's house. Dinner plans. Mahjong. A quiet, routine evening. Nothing unusual. By 9:48 that night, she returned home. The garage door lifted, then shut. 2 minutes. Everything appeared normal. Until it didn't. At 1:47 in the morning, her doorbell camera went offline. Not a drained battery. Not a weak signal. Disconnected. Hours later, when Nancy failed to log into her regular virtual church service, concern turned into urgency. Phone calls were made. Family members checked in. Soon, authorities stepped in. By February 1st, 2025, Nancy Guthrie was officially listed as missing. Before we move forward, hold on to this question. If your mother disappeared after leaving your home, how long would it take before you stood in front of a camera? Think about your answer. Keep that number in your mind. We'll return to it. As the investigation unfolded, federal authorities stepped in. The Federal Bureau of Investigation released footage from the doorbell camera, a masked individual, armed, standing at Nancy's door in the early hours of the morning. Then came the physical evidence. A glove, recovered nearly 2 miles away. DNA traces. A $50,000 reward for information. Every piece documented. Every detail verified. But alongside the official case, another narrative began to take shape, one driven not by investigators, but by public attention. It focused on something less tangible. Silence. More specifically, the silence of a family member, and what people believed that silence might mean. To be clear, no one in Nancy's family has been charged with a crime. Law enforcement has publicly stated that the family is not considered involved. What we're examining here is perception, why the public reacted the way it did. And the question that kept surfacing, again and again, was simple: where is Annie? When someone disappears, people don't just follow the evidence. They watch the family closely. Every statement, every expression, every decision about who speaks publicly and who doesn't becomes part of the narrative. In the days after Nancy vanished, her children did what many families in crisis do. They stepped in front of cameras. They made direct appeals. They spoke to whoever might be responsible, hoping their words would reach the right ears. On February 4th, 4 days after Nancy disappeared, Savannah Guthrie stood at the center of a family statement. Her siblings surrounded her, but she carried most of the message. It made sense. This is what she does. She understands how to communicate under pressure, how to stay composed even when the situation is anything but. Standing beside her was Annie. White shirt, large framed glasses, a face marked by grief. She was there, present, visible. At the time, nothing about it stood out. Then the following day came a different kind of message. Cameron Guthrie, a retired Air National Guard pilot, released a video on his own. There was no polish, no media training. Just a man clearly uncomfortable in front of a camera, reading from a script that seemed heavy in his hands. His voice carried that weight. Still, he showed up. He spoke for his mother. By February 7th, the family appeared together again. Another joint statement. Hands linked. Faces more strained than before. The tone had shifted, less hope, more uncertainty. To those watching, it felt like a family still searching without answers. A full week had passed. On February 9th, Savannah appeared alone once more. This time, there was no attempt to hide the emotion. She described it herself as desperation, and it showed. The next day, she shared personal photos and home videos. Moments that turned Nancy from a headline into a person the public could recognize, relate to, care about. Then, on February 15th, another video. No makeup. No script. No distance. Just a daughter, exhausted, speaking directly into the camera, asking whoever might be responsible to do the right thing. 6 videos. 12 days. Multiple voices. Multiple appeals. But if you've been paying attention, you've already noticed it. Someone is missing. Every sibling appears at some point, speaking, pleading, showing up. Except one. And this is where the story shifts. Up until now, everything has been about what the family did. From here on, it's about what one member didn't do, and how that absence became a story of its own. Annie Guthrie has often been described as the writer of the family, the one who works with language for a living. Based in Tucson, her professional life revolves around words, crafting them, teaching them, understanding how they land and why they matter. Her work with the University of Arizona Poetry Center places her in a space built entirely on expression. In a moment like this, that detail stood out. Because if anyone in the family had the ability to shape a message powerful enough to reach whoever might be responsible, it would be her. And yet, after that initial appearance on February 4th, she didn't speak publicly again. No solo video. No written statement. No direct appeal. Meanwhile, her brother Cameron, someone with no media background, no comfort in front of a camera, stepped forward alone. His delivery was uneasy, his posture stiff, a script clearly guiding him through each line. But he still did it. He showed up, even when it wasn't natural for him. That contrast didn't go unnoticed. The writer stayed silent. The pilot spoke. At first, people gave Annie the benefit of the doubt. Grief doesn't look the same for everyone. Not everyone processes trauma in public. Not everyone feels capable of speaking when the world is watching. Those are reasonable explanations. But what shifted public curiosity into something more persistent wasn't just Annie's silence. It was that her husband disappeared from the public narrative too. Tommaso Cioni became a point of focus, not because of anything proven, but because of timing. In missing person investigations, the last confirmed contact matters more than anything else. And in this case, Tommaso was the last known person to see Nancy Guthrie. He was the one who drove her home on the night of January 31st. That fact alone doesn't imply guilt. It doesn't even imply suspicion in a legal sense. But it does make someone central to the timeline. Because once Nancy stepped out of that car and entered her home, the record goes dark. The distance between Annie and Tommaso's house and Nancy's residence? About 4 miles. Under normal circumstances, that's nothing, an ordinary drive, a handful of minutes, maybe a couple of traffic lights along the way. But in a case like this, that short stretch becomes something else entirely. A corridor of unanswered questions. Every minute inside it matters. And this is where public attention sharpened, because the kinds of questions investigators typically ask about that final evening were never clearly answered in public. What exactly happened during dinner? It was described as a game night, but mahjong traditionally requires 4 players. Who was the 4th person? What was the timeline inside the house? Who else was present? These aren't accusations. They're the basic building blocks of any timeline. And when people started asking them, they were met with silence. What came next was a decision that is, by every legal standard, completely normal. They hired legal representation. That choice matters, but not in the way many people assume. Retaining a lawyer when you're closely tied to a timeline like this isn't suspicious. It's not an admission. It's not even unusual. Any attorney would give the same advice: don't speak without representation. That guidance exists to protect innocent people just as much as anyone else. But there's one thing a lawyer can't manage: public perception. While the rest of the Guthrie family continued speaking, appearing in videos, sharing memories, making emotional appeals, Annie and Tommaso stepped back entirely. No interviews. No statements. No appearances. The cameras kept rolling. And they stayed out of frame. That absence didn't answer questions. It created more of them. By this point, the public had been watching closely for nearly 2 weeks. Every detail, every appearance, every absence, it all started to blur into a narrative people were building in real time. And once that happens, people begin connecting dots, whether those dots actually belong together or not. Then something surfaced that intensified everything. A legal document. Public record. Accessible. Verifiable. On May 16, 2025, Tommaso Cioni filed paperwork transferring power of attorney to Annie Guthrie, granting her authority over his financial and personal affairs. On its own, that kind of document is routine. People establish power of attorney for countless reasons: medical planning, travel, long-term security, or simply precaution. There's nothing inherently suspicious about it. But context changes how things are received. This didn't appear in a vacuum. It appeared in the middle of an active missing person case. It appeared while public scrutiny around the couple was already building. And it appeared while Tommaso himself had not made any public statement. That combination mattered. Online, the reaction was immediate. Discussion forums broke it down line by line. Comment sections filled with speculation. For some observers, it wasn't just a document, it became confirmation of a theory they had already formed. Even media voices entered the conversation. Ashley Banfield, speaking on her platform, referenced a source suggesting Tommaso had been viewed as a prime focus in the investigation. Megyn Kelly pointed to repeated law enforcement visits to the couple's home as a sign of intensified attention. But officially, the position remained unchanged. Law enforcement stated that the Guthrie family, including Annie and Tommaso, had been cleared. Still, by that stage, public opinion had already begun to settle. And the silence, consistent, deliberate, and legally protected, became the loudest element of all. To understand why so much attention centered on Annie, you have to look at something deeper than just her actions. You have to look at who she is, and who she isn't. Because Annie Guthrie is not Savannah Guthrie. She has never lived in that spotlight. Never built a career around public presence or communication under pressure. And that contrast, between the sister the world recognizes and the one it doesn't, is exactly what made her absence feel so noticeable. Professionally, Annie is described as a creative professional based in Tucson. At first glance, that sounds clear enough. But when you pause on it, it's actually quite broad. Creative professional can mean many things at once: writer, poet, educator. All valid, all meaningful, but also, all somewhat undefined from the outside. And that's where tension builds. Because when someone becomes part of a national conversation, especially one tied to a disappearance, people instinctively try to form a complete picture of who they are. Vague descriptions don't satisfy that instinct. They leave space. And when there's space, people tend to fill it themselves. What we can verify about Annie Guthrie is more concrete. She has been affiliated with the University of Arizona Poetry Center, a nonprofit institution. Because nonprofits are required to publish certain financial disclosures, parts of that picture are publicly accessible. Those filings suggest her income has varied widely, ranging from essentially zero in some years to around $28,000 in others. That kind of fluctuation isn't unusual in creative fields. Grants come and go. Projects start and end. Institutional budgets shift. It's not a steady paycheck. It's a cycle. Beyond that, Annie has also worked on handcrafted, commission-based jewelry. Again, entirely legitimate, but by nature, inconsistent. One month may bring in multiple orders, the next may bring none. She has also published poetry, with at least one book available through Amazon. At the time this case drew attention, it had only a small number of reviews, suggesting limited commercial reach. None of this implies wrongdoing. What it does do is outline a financial profile, one defined by variability rather than stability. And that becomes relevant when placed next to a major financial decision made in 2025. Now, shift focus to Tommaso Cioni. Where Annie's financial picture is fluid, his is far more straightforward. He works as a 6th grade science and AP biology teacher. Unlike creative work, teaching salaries are relatively easy to estimate using public data. In the Tucson area, that role typically falls somewhere between $50,000 and $65,000 annually. Even if we stretch that range, factoring in experience, tenure, and optimism, you're looking at roughly $70,000 per year. A stable, predictable income. He was also associated with a band at one point, a detail that briefly caught online attention. But a closer look shows little recent activity. No new releases, no active touring, no visible momentum in recent years. In practical terms, it appears to have become a hobby rather than a source of income. And hobbies, especially ones involving instruments and equipment, tend to require money, not generating. So when you place both profiles side by side, you get a clearer picture. One income stream that fluctuates. One that remains steady but modest. And it's against that backdrop that the next detail entered the public conversation, a $675,000 home. Not just a purchase, but a number that, for many watching, didn't seem to align easily with what they believed they understood about the couple's finances. Whether that perception was accurate or not, it became part of the story people were telling themselves. And once again, the gap between what was known and what wasn't started to matter. So if you lay out Tommaso Cioni's financial picture as plainly as possible, it looks like this: a teaching salary, estimated generously at around $70,000 a year. No clearly verifiable secondary income stream contributing at a meaningful level. Now bring Annie Guthrie into that equation. Let's assign her the same figure, $70,000 annually, even though publicly available information suggests her income may fluctuate significantly lower. That places the household at a combined $140,000 per year. Round it up to $150,000 to account for anything unaccounted for. That's the high-end estimate. Now look at the other side of the equation. In 2025, the couple sold their previous home, a property they had owned since 2016, for approximately $379,000. After that sale, they upgraded. The new property, the one central to this timeline, the home where Nancy Guthrie had dinner on January 31st, carries an estimated value of $675,000. That number is what drew attention. So let's step through it carefully, without speculation, just basic financial framing. A $150,000 annual household income sounds solid. And in many areas, it is. But what matters isn't just income. It's what remains after obligations. Federal and state taxes reduce that number significantly. A rough estimate would place total tax liability somewhere around $40,000 annually. That leaves approximately $110,000 in take-home income. That's the working number. Now compare that to the cost of a $675,000 home. Under typical lending conditions, a conventional down payment could range widely, sometimes 20%, sometimes significantly less depending on the loan structure. That could mean anywhere from roughly $135,000 to over $200,000 up front. And that's before ongoing costs even begin. Property taxes in Tucson for a home in that range can land in the several $1,000 annual range. Homeowners insurance adds another layer, often increasing year over year depending on market conditions. Then there's the mortgage itself, maintenance, utilities, and everyday living expenses. Put together, it creates a financial picture that, at least from the outside, raised questions for observers trying to reconcile income with lifestyle. But it's important to pause here. What numbers don't show are the variables that can dramatically change this picture: proceeds from the previous home sale, savings accumulated over time, family assistance or inheritance, loan types requiring lower down payments, additional income streams not publicly visible. Without access to full financial records, no outside observer can draw a complete or accurate conclusion. What we're looking at here isn't proof of anything. It's perception. A house in that price range, especially one estimated to be 30 to 60 years old, which is typical for many neighborhoods in Tucson, comes with its own realities. Maintenance isn't optional. It's ongoing, and often unpredictable. Add to that rising utility costs tied to larger square footage. Add the everyday expenses of raising a child. Add the basic cost of living, food, transportation, healthcare, everything that quietly stacks up month after month. When you place all of that against even a generous estimate of $150,000 annual income, the margin starts to feel tight. For many watching this case unfold, it felt too tight. And that's where public speculation began to fill the gap. Online, one name kept appearing in the same conversations about finances. One name people pointed to when trying to reconcile what didn't seem to add up: Savannah Guthrie. The question people kept asking was straightforward. If Annie Guthrie and Tommaso Cioni couldn't comfortably bridge the financial gap on a $675,000 home based on visible income, then where did the additional capital come from? For many, the most visible answer was Savannah. Her career is well established. A long-standing role in national television places her in a completely different financial category than a teacher's salary or commission-based creative work. In that context, the theory takes shape. A contribution, perhaps toward a down payment, would be significant, but not unimaginable. And internally, the logic makes a certain kind of sense. If Annie played a central role in caring for Nancy Guthrie, then supporting Annie's living situation could be seen not as excess, but as practicality. Not just generosity, but infrastructure. A way to ensure stability for the person responsible for day-to-day care. That's how the theory is framed by those who believe it. But this is also where it becomes more complicated. Because if that kind of financial support existed, some argue it would introduce another layer to the situation. A sense of dependency. And in the minds of the public, that possibility began to connect with other elements they were already questioning. The silence, the legal representation, the power of attorney, the absence from public appeals. This is perception, not proof. But perception has its own momentum. And once people begin tying separate threads together, whether accurately or not, those connections start to feel real to them. Which brings us back to where this all began. A simple question, one that hasn't gone away. If your mother vanished after leaving your home, how long would it take before you stood in front of a camera? You've carried that number with you this entire time. But now, after everything we've walked through, it doesn't feel like a simple question anymore. Because this isn't about a stranger. This isn't about someone on the edge of the story. This is about Annie Guthrie, a writer, a poet, someone whose life revolves around language, how it connects, how it persuades, how it reaches people in moments that matter. And her mother, The woman she was closely connected to, the one who sat at her dinner table on January 31st, has been missing for weeks. And Annie has not made a single public statement since that initial appearance. Throughout this entire piece, one line has remained clear: no one in the Guthrie family has been charged with a crime. Law enforcement, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, has stated the family is not considered involved. The investigation remains active. Its focus, officially, is on an unidentified masked individual captured on security footage. That is the record. And the record matters. But so does perception. Because the public record, the one built from observation, tells a different kind of story. It shows a woman who was present on the final confirmed night, who stepped back behind legal counsel, who remained silent while others spoke, who is part of a financial picture people struggled to fully understand. None of those things are crimes. But together, they became questions. And this case is built on questions. A disconnected doorbell camera. A 4-mile drive with no answers in between. A masked figure appearing in the dark. A timeline that stops where certainty should begin. Each piece incomplete. Each piece unresolved. And in a situation like this, silence doesn't disappear into the background. It becomes part of the story. Not proof. Not evidence. But something people try to interpret. Because in investigations, every action, and every absence of action, can feel meaningful more than truly subscribed. And that brings everything back.
Share this with someone.
You've seen the timeline. You've heard the questions. You know what's confirmed, and what is the case file. So now, the case leaves the file and lands with the meanings. What do you think happened?